Today we're going to go through chapter 2.1, which covers quantifiers. So when we think about how many or how much, or really the quantity of something, there are a few phrases that come to mind that we can use to express how many, right? So things like all, each, every, any, there is, there exists, there are, some, at least one, right? Each of these phrases gives an idea of how many, and when we combine one of these phrases with an open sentence, remember an open sentence has a variable, then we get an expression that's referred to as a quantifier. Okay, so we're going to take a look at an example to make this a little bit more concrete. And we're going to ask ourselves, do any real numbers satisfy the equation x plus 3 equals 3 plus x? Well, the answer is yes, right? We could consider x equals 0, and that would give us 3 equals 3 when we would substitute in 0 for x here. So we know that, yes, there is a real number that satisfies that. And then the question is, how many real numbers satisfy that? Is it just one? Is it a handful? Is it all of them? Well, it turns out that, yeah, it is all of them, right? We could plug in any real number for x, and x plus 3 equals 3 plus x, with that real number plugged in for x, would be a true statement. So there are a lot of ways that we can express this concept, and a few of them are for all real numbers x, x plus 3 equals 3 plus x. Or we could have said for any real number x, this is true. Or for every real number x, this is true. Could have said for each real number x, x plus 3 equals 3 plus x. We also could have said if x is a real number, then x plus 3 equals 3 plus x, right? All of these statements here are getting at the same idea, which is that any real number that we plug in for x to the equation x plus 3 equals 3 plus x is going to give us a true statement. Okay, let's take a look at another example. Consider this statement. For each integer y plus 2 is greater than 3. Does that seem like a true statement? Well, not really, right? Because we can think of a value for y where this is not true, right? Let's, we can plug in our trusty 0 here. Y equals 0 is going to give us 0 plus 2. And I'm putting the question mark here to say I'm evaluating the truth of this. Well, that means, 2 greater than 3, question mark, and no, it's not. That's false. Okay? So if we wanted to convert this original statement for each integer y plus 2 greater than 3, into a statement that is true, we would say there is an integer y such that y plus 2 is greater than 3, right? We can think of some integers where this is true. You know, one is if I plug in 100, then I'm going to get 102 greater than 3. That's totally true. Okay. So the last thing that I want to cover is there are two symbols that can be used to make these phrases simpler. Or, I don't mean simpler, but faster to write. There's some shorthand symbols. So for the phrases that are like all, each, every, any, these can all be expressed with this upside down A, which directly translates to for all, right? So when we previously, in the first example that we talked about, where we had for every real number x, x plus 3 equals 3 plus x, we could have written that with shorthand and said, you know, for all x that's real, x is an element of the real numbers. For all real x, x plus 3 equals 3 plus x, right? These two statements are equivalent. This second one just happens to be a lot faster and shorter to write. So, yeah. You don't have to use this symbol. I'm just putting it out there as a, hey, here's something that can make your life a little easier. Okay, the other symbol that can make your life a little easier is one that shortens there is, there exists, some, at least one of. All of these can be simplified with this backwards E, which directly translates to there exists. So in the second example that we looked at, when we talked about there is an integer y such that y plus 2 is greater than 3, well, that could have been simplified by saying, or by writing, there exists y that's an integer such that y plus 2 is greater than 3. So these mean the same thing. The second one is just a whole lot faster to write. All right, just putting that out there. That's it for today.